Started. Thank you very much, everybody.
Libby, thank you, and good morning. Lovely spring day at the moment anyway. I'm Ian Mean, I'm Director for Business West in Gloucestershire. This is our Gloucestershire Business and Economy meeting, and I'm calling it the Tewkesbury Powerhouse. Slightly journalistic, probably. We're not like the Northern Powerhouse, and I'm not trying to say we're like our political partnership, the Western Gateway. What I am saying, though, is that there is tremendous growth in Tewkesbury. It's actually the officially fastest growing local authority area outside London. That's according to the ONS in 2019. It's sort of difficult to believe, I think, that over the next 20 years in Tewkesbury could be home to more than 12,000 new jobs. I've always felt Tewkesbury was a sort of hidden powerhouse, fantastic companies there. Sometimes we don't realize that, I don't think. So I want to start off by introducing our panelists very, very quickly before they say a few words themselves. First of all, we've got Mike Dawson. Mike's the CEO of Tewkesbury District Council, one of the longest serving CEOs in Gloucestershire. Then we have Colin Chick, who at the moment hasn't joined us, but Colin is Executive Director of Economy, Environment and Infrastructure for the County Council. Then there's Rupert Cox, Managing Director of Stagecoach, Mark Lawton, General Manager of the Moog Aircraft Group, Nikki Godding, Editor and co-publisher of Business and Innovation magazine. What I'd like to do straight away, Mike, is get you to talk us through why you think Tewkesbury is the new powerhouse for Gloucestershire.
Ian, can I just come in a second? Is it Colin?
Colin, yeah.
Can you not see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, that's okay. You said I hadn't joined, but I've been sitting here for the last sort of 5-10 minutes, so I just wonder what was happening.
We can see you and hear you loud and clear. So, Mike, could you get us off? Why do you think Tewkesbury, in my terms, is something of a powerhouse?
Ian?
See your slides, Mike. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. I apologise for that. My internet just dropped out at the worst possible moment. So it's normally quite stable. I apologise to everybody for missing me for that. Thank you, Ian. I presume you've introduced me anyway, so I should just crack on with these slides, which are aimed to be a scene setter for the discussion over the next few minutes, really. I'm really, really excited to be giving this presentation this morning. Gloucestershire is a fabulous county. It has fabulous businesses. It has great success, great connectivity. And Tewkesbury Borough effectively is a main powerhouse, in my view, for the drive of that success of the county. So why might that be? Well, because businesses and the local authorities in Tewkesbury Borough are ambitious for growth. We look to work with many people to deliver infrastructure, and we work very closely, as close as we can, with businesses. You want to move the slide on, Libby? It's a really funny old shaped borough when you look at it. That's the first thing to say. And its geography is what actually adds to the drive and ability for growth in this area. Somebody once said to me when I first joined Tewkesbury Borough that the reason why it was a funny shape is because it was what was left over after they'd drawn all the other boundaries. And that probably was true, because it is a funny old shape, swinging out of the Cotswolds, some beautiful areas, down the Severn Valley, wrap around Cheltenham and wrap around Gloucester. When you actually look at it, we've got 6 motorway junctions in Gloucestershire. 4 of them are in Tewkesbury Borough. And thus, we also take that and take the fact that we wrap around the two urban centres so much. In fact, on the other side of those urban centres, there's a lot of AONB. A lot of the growth pressures come into Tewkesbury Borough. So geography really helps. But if you just look at the statistics on this slide, we are very much the growth engine for Gloucestershire. 50% of the JCS growth is coming into Tewkesbury Borough. The growth corridor I've already mentioned. We got already the highest business growth in Gloucestershire. Now, I would like to say that this slide I've left as pre-COVID, and hopefully we will return to this success levels when we get out of this horrible pandemic that's facing us all. We're leading with the County Council to establish a new city region for Gloucestershire. We are working with the County Council and others in respect of major infrastructure projects, over £1 billion worth around the borough as a whole. We at the moment delivering around 1,000 homes a year. We got 75% of the Joint Core Strategy employment land allocation in Tewkesbury Borough. We're working very closely with Cheltenham and others around Cyber Central, and in particular the garden community, 3,000 plus houses associated with Cyber Central. We got the highest productivity rate in Gloucestershire. We've got a garden town of 10,000 plus homes. We're working to deliver growth for Cheltenham and Gloucester through the Joint Core Strategy. And in 2019, officially, Tewkesbury Borough Council, in terms of population increase, was the fastest growing area outside London. So that just gives you an idea. 2020, we dropped slightly down the league table to 4th. So whatever way and whichever way you look at this, this is an amazing growth area. And we do very well. So if you move the slide on, at the moment, we got some ambitious projects. Tewkesbury Garden Town I have mentioned, and we were well viewed by other organisations. And as I say, Homes England there making comments about our ambition and our desire to deliver growth in our area. And the same again for the Golden Valley. If you move on, Libby, thank you. Thank you. It's a Golden Valley development to Cheltenham, also associated with a major garden community, and the majority of that garden community falls into the Tewkesbury Borough. So very close partnership with Cheltenham there. Yes, you can move on to the next slide, please. We're really keen to support that development through delivering infrastructure for communities, so that schools and health facilities. So we create places when we grow in our borough. We are particularly good at getting housing infrastructure funding. We already have that funding for the short-term access strategy for the garden town. And we've achieved, again, I think our partners have achieved, the County Council, amazing success in getting the funding for Junction 10. I'm sure Colin might say a little bit about that later on. And we're working again very closely with the County Council to deliver a scheme for Junction 9 as well. So if you tot all that up, between what we've already got and what we're looking to create, there's £1 billion worth of major motorway and road improvements around the borough. And I have to say that, you know, the partnership we have with government, with the County Council and with businesses is second to none, really, in terms of how we deliver. So Libby, if you'd like to move on, please. We work with businesses closely, and I always say this is our growth hub. It's the only growth hub, I'd like to say, in the world, located in a local authority office. And that makes it really interesting because it can pull down local authority services to help and support businesses really quickly. We provide, every service we've got in the building has a local authority champion that will work with businesses and address, if you come through the front door, the idea is we give you support as quickly as possible. possible. And we've worked with businesses to help them relocate and grow. So if you take the next slide, please, Libby. There's a few statistics, again, pre-COVID. But in the first year of this, our growth hub, you can see the statistics for yourself there. Major events that we've run. We've supported over 100 business startups. We have huge interactions in terms of just links with businesses. And also, we, at the moment, through the COVID response and also with recovery, the Growth Hub is a really, really important part of that. Working very, very hard at the moment to support businesses as they face the massive challenge of COVID-19 and getting back to normal, hopefully in the next in the next few months, whatever that new normal is. So that's really just a starter for 10, Ian, as a just, this is Tewkesbury Borough. And we want to work very closely with many, many of our key businesses and with our partners to make life in Tewkesbury and business life in Tewkesbury a success. I'm not saying we're perfect. There's many areas we can improve, and we're always open to comments from businesses to help us do that. So I hope that sets the scene. Over to you, Ian.
Right, thanks for that. Good starter for 10. Can I just ask you this? You turn over as a council about 19 million. The Tewkesbury Garden Town is going to cost many, many millions, isn't it? What's the time scale here? Is it sort of like 20 years or what?
I think it's more than that, Ian. I think we're looking at 30 years, possibly beyond. At the moment, we only have a concept for the garden town. There's a lot more work to be done, a lot of planning. And then when I say planning, that's planning with a big P, a lot of strategic planning to go in, a lot of consultation. We want to work with the local communities and with local businesses to shape that development as it can go forward. So yes, it's a major, major scheme. We're only in, 18 months in, 2 years in, on a scheme that's going to probably, if it goes forward in the way we want it to, last for about 30 years, I think, or beyond.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone who wants to ask Mike a question now, shout up. Happy to take your questions after each speaker or at the end. Has anyone got a burning question now? No, fine. You got off lightly there, Mike.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll make up for it later, Ian. Ian, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mike. I want to introduce our next panelist now, who's Colin Chick. He's got a great title. I must read this. Executive Director of Economy, Environment and Infrastructure. Is that? I think that's right, isn't it, Colin?
That's correct, Ian, yeah. Right now on the money that went with it.
I just want to say this. I've known Colin for a while now. He's a guy who gets things done. He doesn't take any prisoners. And I think working for the county council, you need to be that sort of guy. And I know he's helped Mike massively in all these plans, and he's a big infrastructure man. So could you give us an idea, Colin, on your take on the growth of Tewkesbury?
Well, I think the growth of Tewkesbury and the county as a whole is incredibly exciting over the next 30 years, and the potential is phenomenal. I mean, as you know, Ian, I joined for a year. It was actually only 4 months initially, as a consultant to the council to help them as a strategic advisor. I actually felt that the potential in the county was so great, and the county, hadn't really probably punched at its weight. And I saw the difference I'd made in that short period, and felt, well, I'll actually close my business down and stay and drive the agenda forward, because I felt that it was a real possibility to take the county somewhere really great. And there was so much potential that it hadn't been really exploited fully. And Tewkesbury's the start of that. Tewkesbury's, fantastic offer. As you know, only last year, we secured the GDA and the funding for Junction 10, £250 million from Homes England. That enables the development to the west of Cheltenham to take place, but also obviously helps the whole of that southern part of Tewkesbury onto the edge of Cheltenham to develop. We're now working on Junction 9 and the A46, which will be a tremendous asset because, first of all, the A46, people don't realise this yet, the A46 is going to be the Trans-Midland trade route. So that will start in Tewkesbury. That will start at the M5, and hopefully when we secure it, the new Junction 9, and then go straight across the underside of Tewkesbury and Ashchurch, which will enable the building of that new town, and then straight out right the way across the Midlands, up to Immingham, northeast, right across the Midlands. So it actually will act as a bypass to the congested M42 corridor. But when you look at and put it, then you start to realise how strategically placed Tewkesbury is in the future, and that garden town is, and the offer. Those connections straight up into the Midlands, both the West Midlands via the M5 and the East Midlands via the A46, as it gets upgraded, and obviously southwards down towards Bristol on the M5. So you can see at every level, that's what we're trying to drive it. I think the county probably over the next 30 years will have 100,000 new houses, and obviously Tewkesbury area will be a major part of that, and obviously the business that go with it. But it's not just about road-based transport, and we're very conscious of that. And what I should probably mention as well is that age-old problem for Gloucestershire, which is only literally just outside the Tewkesbury area because of the way it's shaped and the way it drops down between Cheltenham and Gloucester, is obviously the air balloon roundabout just immediately to the south, which again we've now secured the funding for, and that will hopefully be on site next year. That's a £600 million scheme. So you can see how the level of investment that's going in is phenomenal. Along with, so it's not just about those highway works. What we're also doing is ensuring that we improve bus connectivity. And I'm not going to steal Rupert's thunder there, so I'll leave that, but working with Rupert to make sure we strengthen that. The new B4603 cycle route, which will be a really high quality cycle route that will go from Gloucester to Cheltenham, then up to Bishop's Cleeve, and eventually be extended down to Stroud and north of Bishop's Cleeve as well. Again, provides that cycle spine through the area. And then not forgetting the rail. We've just secured, we're working with Network Rail, a doubling of service, a new service, so it's an hourly to Ashchurch to start that ball rolling of getting people onto public transport. And obviously, although just to the south, but really, very close to that southern edge of Tewkesbury, the new metro service that will both be starting at the end of next year. It would have started probably middle to end of this year if it hadn't have been for COVID, but the numbers have dropped. So hopefully, and there's not the drivers around either, that's the irony, but hopefully those new services will start from next year, middle of next year, maybe the end of next year. So you can see how it's a multi-pronged approach on every single level to create that connectivity into that area, because as I've said, transport is never a means. Transport is never an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It's the glue that sticks society together. And it's about creating that connectivity and the backbone that then Tewkesbury can really grow from in the future. And it's already got that potential. If we secure, and as you know, the bid that we're putting in at the moment for the fusion, I can see that being absolutely catalytic and making Tewkesbury take off even further with the skills and the traditional companies that work in the area that spill over into valves, into aeronautics and aviation or aeronautical engineering that will be needed, and those specialist skills to support the development of a new fusion reactor in the south side of Gloucester is absolutely phenomenal, and that will spill even further into that area because that in itself, the construction of something like that will be literally billions upon billions of pounds, which again, the supply chain will take off again. That was that original supply chain that initially probably started in a lot of cases for the old fission reactors to Berkeley and to Oldbury. So again, you can see how the phoenix arises from the ashes of the old nuclear power stations to the new fusion reactors. It's clean, it's green, and it's safe as well. So I think you can see the phenomenal future I believe Gloucestershire has, and Tewkesbury is a key factor in that.
Colin, that's brilliant. For those who don't know a lot about the fusion situation, of course, that bid goes in on the 24th of this month. Business West are involved with that, with Nucleus Southwest. Colin, how important is that to Gloucestershire, do you think, if we can land that initial bid contract?
I don't want to overplay it in case we don't get it, because, so let me say first of all, I think the outlook for Gloucestershire business is phenomenal. Anyway, it's really, really good. We haven't even mentioned yet, but the cyber park, for example, and the spin-offs that will come from GCHQ and the new cyber park next to it and the new housing that will support it. And numerous other industries that we've got that are absolutely rock solid, that are there, that are ready to take off again post-COVID. In fact, some haven't hardly been affected during COVID. So I think the county is going to be successful. And I decided to carry on working for the county even when there wasn't fusion, wasn't even on the horizon. So, but let's make no mistake about this. To be the first place in the world to produce a fusion reactor that produces electricity that's clean, it's green, and it's safe, no carbon whatsoever. The byproducts could not be better. The byproducts of it are helium and hydrogen. We talk about electric vehicles. If every electric vehicle in the UK, if every vehicle in the UK that's currently petrol or diesel went to being electric, there's not enough lithium in the world to meet the need. So that gives you some how limited our actual focus is at the moment in trying to get ourselves out of this immediate situation. The answer is hydrogen cell, but the real problem with hydrogen is it's very, very difficult to. Sorry, apologies. It's very, very difficult to produce it in large quantities. What produces it in large quantities? A fusion reactor. So there we've got, it's producing the heat, producing electricity, and the byproduct is hydrogen and helium, which is a material that basically is needed in medicine these days, badly needed in high-level engineering. And yet, the moment it's released out of a child's balloon, goes straight up the stratosphere, and you can't get it back. So again, it's really important. Again, so to have something like that that's being produced as a world first by 2040 in the county, the science, the technology that will go into that. There'll be people from all over the world coming to see, to look, to learn. Because if we win it, it's not just about building that step reactor. Going with it is a science and technical part. So therefore, the brains and intelligence and science, which again spills into the cyber side as well. So you can see how it all links together. Literally the initial input is 220 million to get the technical science part going. The fusion reactor itself is billions. So you think about that going into the supply chain, and then afterwards, obviously, you've got the intelligence and the knowledge that the world will want, and the sales after. Don't get the step reactor deliberately designed as a small reactor, unlike the big ones. So it's actually easy, and it's easier to be able to be manufactured around the world and around Great Britain. So the technology we're going to produce, it will be a world beater. So again, you can see the income and the spin-offs that will come for the next 30, 40, 50 years to the county.
Colin, do you think that we're going to have a levelling up challenge here?
Without doubt, on the fusion, without doubt. I mean, with this government's very strong agenda for levelling up, I think we've got a fantastic offer and bid. Our weakness is if the government decide to go for a levelling up agenda. But I would argue that we've deliberately structured our bid. I mean, I coined the phrase, we sit at a crossroads. No one else in the country does that. Because if you think about it, what we will do, and there's commitment in our bid, is that for the construction of that fusion reactor, we need really, really high quality steels. We'll go to Wales for that, and the Welsh authorities through the Western Gateway have signed up as part of that deal because they know that we'll get the steels that we need from this. So again, an area of economic regeneration, they'll be supplying the steels for us. An area for economic regeneration, Cornwall. One of the key components of a fusion reactor is lithium, where we are using Cornish lithium. So again, supports Cornwall to the south. Supporting academia, and particularly around Bristol and the experts in that area. So the north, we've obviously got the Midlands area and the West Midlands, a traditional area of of advanced manufacture and supply chain to the old nuclear reactors and nuclear power stations. So again, we've already got those people that are needed there and jobs. And bear in mind, West Midlands from Birmingham, when we get that, the railway line sorted out, it's under an hour by train. So it's commutable if people actually wanted jobs in the area from the southern edge of the West Midlands. And then, of course, to the east, we've got Cheltenham, which basically is full now. It's where all the early fusion reactors work was done. 6,000 people working there. Okay, a lot of those are in spin-off businesses, but I think it's like 50%, 60% of the people working there are from abroad. Those people we will want in that science technical park. So again, it's only 40, 50 miles away. So again, easy transportable. How comfortable are those people going to be wanting to go up to the northeast or up to Sellafield, or it's not going to Scotland now, I've said that, but up to that, where the other potential areas where we can actually deliver a really great offer on the levelling up argument, keeping that intelligence in the area that we need to build from the future.
Colin, thank you very, very much for that expertise. Any initial questions for Colin? Bit of a fountain of knowledge there on the whole future of Gloucestershire. If there isn't, we can obviously go on and take those afterwards. I'd like now to introduce Rupert Cox. Rupert's Managing Director of Stagecoach, and we read the papers this morning, Rupert. We see that Boris is about to announce a new bus strategy with about £3 billion of money. So exciting times for buses and exciting times in Tewkesbury for buses, I would imagine.
Absolutely, and exciting is the word that I've picked out from every speaker so far, because it is really exciting what the potential is and what's going to happen in Tewkesbury. New homes, new employment opportunities, retail. It's a really diverse mix, and what enables this growth is transport. And you wouldn't expect anything less from me, but a fantastic bus network is going to be absolutely key to delivering this. We all know that buses are super efficient at carrying large volumes of people, and they also take up a really small amount of road space. But now more than ever, there are some really credible zero emission buses on the market that can further enhance the environmental credentials of bus. And they'll be needed to really help reduce transport's impact on the environment. And it's really exciting to hear about the fusion plans, and let's fingers are crossed on getting through that. The volume of growth that I can see from Tewkesbury really is transformational. And that's also what we need to aspire to do to the bus and transport networks so that we can meet that challenge. The current infrastructure really won't cut it. Tewkesbury is quite unusual. There aren't any bus lanes, for example, whatsoever in Tewkesbury today. That's quite unusual for local authority areas. And today, as you say, Ian, it's exciting because the national bus strategy has been announced, and we know that from what the Prime Minister did when he was in Transport for London, that buses are really part of his plan for the future. And we'll wait to see more of the detail on that announcement, but we know that part of the headline is around infrastructure so that we can make buses more efficient. If we're more efficient, they could be used more productively, carry more people, help drive down fares. And that's where we need to really work hand in glove with Gloucestershire County Council and the districts to make sure that we can jointly deliver the infrastructure and the actual bus service that run along those that can make our local bus service fantastic. And as a local operator, we're really up for this challenge. It's been interesting looking back over the history in the last 20 years, the number of people using the bus in Tewkesbury has more than doubled. So that we've got a great foundation to build from, because we know the bus can deliver that growth that we've also seen in population. And we're here for the journey.
Yeah, thanks, Rupert. Tell us about electric buses and hydrogen buses. I know you're very keen on electric buses. They're pretty expensive though, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. About double the price of a conventional diesel engine bus. And the big challenge, that's why this fusion plan could be transformational. That an electric bus, we need to plug it in, it needs to get charged. And when we looked at just converting 14 buses in Cheltenham last year to electric, one of the stumbling blocks was enough power in the local network. If we plug in today 14 buses in Cheltenham, you won't be able to watch the TV at 10 o'clock at night because we'll consume so much of the network. And so there is an infrastructure challenge, and it isn't just as easy as flicking on the switch and powering up your buses with electric. So there's a lot of things that we need to work together across a number of different partners.
What about hydrogen?
So hydrogen, there are some really interesting trials around the UK on hydrogen vehicles. The cost of the vehicle is coming down, but getting hold of that power, getting hold of hydrogen isn't easy. It's not so readily available on the market today. We've got some different trials. I know there's something in Swindon, and there are also questions around how sustainable production of hydrogen can be, and certainly the quantities we need. And that's a great thing. Let's try different things. And I'm conscious of the fact in Gloucestershire, we haven't got a trial off the ground yet with any bus services. And that's where hopefully this national bus strategy will provide some of the means innate for us to be able to put that on the agenda.
Now, you work pretty closely with the county council. Does that work? Is that working well, that relationship?
I think we've got a good foundation. We need to do more. I think there are some big constraints in the network that mean that buses are quite slow, particularly in congested roads at peak times. And I think we've got some great ideas on how we can improve that. And I think this national bus strategy will hopefully provide some of the finance that enables us to unlock the benefits that we've already know can exist in the county, and make bus services better, make them more efficient, make them quicker, and that will appeal to more people to give them a better choice to leave the car at home and take the bus instead.
Isn't there a big opportunity with all these new businesses there for buses to play a bigger part in firms' transportation of their people?
Absolutely, Ian, and we'd really welcome that discussion with any business, because we can, and part of the myth about bus travel is that we're tied to set routes, but we literally have buses, drivers, we can deliver anything. And if a business wants a certain service at 4 o'clock in the morning, we can deliver that. If we want to work with a business to offer a discounted bus tickets, we can deliver that. And about 10% of our buses at the moment are doing those bespoke services for various different local businesses. And that's what it's about. We can do a tailored service for anyone.
And haven't you actually looked at the idea of opening a new bus station in Tewkesbury for the area?
We have, yes, because of the huge amount of growth that we're expecting. We've been talking to some of the local developers about how we can put in place a sustainable bus depot so that we can have locally based people maintaining local buses, and so the drivers have shorter commutes. And that will be a really interesting thing, how that evolves with the development and transformation of the wider Tewkesbury area.
Thanks very much, Rupert. Before I go on to introduce Mark Lawton of Moog, I know Tracy Cadogan, you've put a question in, Tracy. Can you, I'll ask Mike, I think, Mike Dawson, to answer your query.
Can I just ask a question, or?
Ask away.
Yeah, so just wondered, what's he going to offer in the way of the? I'm a designer and artist, and I'd just like to know what they're going to offer in the way of creative industries, because it's one of the growth areas. It generates billions for our economy, and I think Tewkesbury could actually do with something that's more visible, especially as a new venue to give opportunities for aspirational people that want to come to the kind of county. We've got Gloucester building up their creative offering, but we want something that's a bit more visible in Tewkesbury. And I've worked with the Tewkesbury Growth Hub, and they're very positive, and I think they could do with something that's along those lines. So I don't know what you're going to offer or what's in the pipeline.
Mike, can you answer that question from Tracy?
Hi, Ian. I think Mike may have dropped off the call again.
Okay. Well, if he has, Tracy, we'll come back to you on that. We won't forget you, because I think that's quite an important point.
Yeah.
Colin, yeah.
What Rupert was saying, which I think is quite important. In fact, one thing we're working on at the moment with Rupert is we're looking at, I should have probably mentioned it, but it's at an early stage at the moment, obviously a mass transit system to go from initially from Gloucester to Cheltenham, but with the aim of taking it down to Stroud in the south and up to Bishop's Cleeve and Ashchurch to the north. But that first stage, where I feel probably the thing that we're most likely to deliver on, I mean, people talk about light rail and that sort of thing. It's fixed. It doesn't, the trouble is you've got to predict where the growth is going to go and then hope you get it right. And in fact, you still end up having to get people onto a bus to go to the nearest train station, then change onto light rail, etc. Well, I'm actually a great believer in the sort of environment which we've got between Gloucester, Cheltenham, and outside of that is guided busway, which enables a bus to basically behave in the guideway. It behaves, it's as fast as any light rail service. It's completely flexible because where it gets to important points, it can break out of that and go into residential estates, pick people up at their door, come back out again. It's got the flexibility to respond to where growth is, but at the same time, enables a bus to behave more like a train in those congested corridors in between. So that's something we're looking at the moment as a way forward within the county.
Yeah, Colin, is that similar to the system operated in Cambridge? Yeah,
in fact, I did a parallel one at the same time. I wanted a light rail to begin with. When I saw the flexibility that a guided bus can give in an urban environment, and we built ours in parallel. Cambridge was slightly ahead of us, but the Luton Dunstable guided busway is one that we built at almost exactly the same time. But actually, that one, the Luton Dunstable one, the Cambridge one is mostly rural, where the Luton one is the longest guided busway in an urban environment in the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, fantastic.
Ian, sorry to jump in. Could I just answer Tracy's question? I see in the absence of Paul Mike, who's obviously got some IT issues. I'm sorry to jump in. Is that all right? Very quickly.
Yeah, Jonathan, can you just tell us who you are?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Dibble. I'm the Programme Director on the Garden Community Developments for Tewkesbury. So just to pick up very quickly, Tracy, I didn't want you to think that your point wasn't missed, but I think you're right. We always talk about sort of industry, etc. And Tewkesbury, as you rightfully say, I mean, there's a massive history. It's a very historic town. And I think really, just to answer you very quickly, that we are in early days of this, but take your point. And the programme, that I'm working on is very much a transformation for Tewkesbury as a wider area. So, how that sort of helps support tourism and, as you say, creative industries, etc., is a critical part of the Garden Town development. So really, we don't have any answers today, but just to say, yes, thank you for your point. And Ian, if that's okay, we'll continue to work that issue.
Yeah, Jonathan, while you're on, you've heard Mike give a basic introduction to Tewkesbury Garden Town. Can you add a little bit more detail? I gather these homes, you're very keen, these are going to be built to a high specification and obviously sustainable.
Yes, exactly, Ian. I mean, very much, go back to the old Ebenezer Howard ethos of what garden towns, garden communities are. And, what we've looked at is trying to build on those, principles back from the 30s and look to say, yes, if we are going to make such a large development, we do have the opportunity to bring forward, great principles, health, as you say, sustainable developments, energy, walking, cycling, all those sorts of factors. Now, we, as Mike said, I mean, it is a long-term program, but a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment is looking at those development principles and just saying, okay, yeah, how can we bring them forward? There's lots of work going on in relation to the government and improving these sort of, call it planning policy developments. But we know we're working as quick as we can really to try and bring forward, they say the buzzwords like exemplar developments, etc. But yes, that's where we are. But it is early days at the moment, Ian.
And Jonathan, just a difficult question probably. What's this garden town going to cost eventually?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, obviously any large development like this, you know, requires substantial infrastructure investment. There's a lot of work going on with, I mean, Colin Chick sort of mentioning earlier on with road improvements. Now, these are, you know, hundreds of millions. So I think it'd be unfair to say that, you know, you do need a substantial infrastructure investment. However, you know, on the flip side, when you start bringing forward this amount of homes, obviously there's huge value within that development, you know, the land value uplift, etc. Point. So I think it's, you know, it's a balance really. It's up to us to try and bring forward these developments, capturing some of that value. And so there's a, you know, there is going to be, you know, an equal, let me say, an equal contribution from the development as opposed to just looking at government funding. But you're right. I mean, it is large, and you know, that is a key part of these early phases of the program.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Just like now to introduce Mark Lawton to you. Mark's General Manager of the Moog Aircraft Group. Moog's an amazing company, a quite iconic company, I didn't realise it was founded by Bill Moog, actually, in Eastern Aurora in New York. Massive company. Of course, they employ about 463 people in Tewkesbury in various roles. A lot of us probably came to know them from the moving Wimbledon roofs, Mark. You're the largest employer in Tewkesbury. Can you talk to us about how you're growing with the town with these amazing developments?
Hi, yes, thanks, Ian. Well, first of all, I'll do some introductions and a background, and then I'll address your question, Ian. So I'm Mark Lawton, the General Manager for the Moog Aircraft business here in Tewkesbury. Interestingly, Bill Moog is how he pronounces his name. So when we're talking to the Americans, we say Moog, but in the UK, it's obviously a double O and we say Moog. So the aircraft business occupies 3 buildings on Ashchurch Industrial Estate, employing over 350 people in the design and manufacture of hydraulic servo valves used in aerospace for precision motion control. That's our sort of ethos, precision motion control of rudders and other flight control surfaces. We also, interestingly, supply fuel control valves to the large engine companies, so Rolls-Royce, Safran, Pratt & Whitney, and General Electric. So we're delivering to all the primes on the engine side. We also, as you say, Ian, have an industrial business here in Tewkesbury in a relatively new building down by the Ashchurch train station. That business employs over 100 people. The industrial businesses, it uses the same core technology to bring precision motion control to a wide range of industrial products, ranging from all the servo valves used on the F1, so the Formula One racing cars for things like your brake-by-wire and steering-by-wire, but also all the way up to, and our biggest product probably, as you say, is the full actuation system for the Wimbledon, the opening and closing of Wimbledon Centre Court and Court 1. So that's what Moog do in Tewkesbury. And I guess another relevant point in to talk about the growth is that we recently decided we want to build a new, bigger factory. And after looking at lots of different options, we decided to build that factory in Tewkesbury. And interestingly, or appropriately enough, construction actually starts this Friday on the old Trelleborg site. So we have our groundbreaking event on Friday. So I guess why are we growing? Because aerospace has had some challenges, obviously, in the COVID era on the commercial side. But we also do a lot of defense work as well, military work. So, and that has, if anything, grown in the meantime. We deliver to all the major sort of primes on the actuation and fuel control side there. So it's been a tough time, but we are growing in this period, and we are very busy with new programs that we won and the design and development of those products for those new programs. So we chose Tewkesbury. It's probably worth saying we chose Tewkesbury because of the highly skilled workforce that we already have and have had. We've actually been in Tewkesbury for 40 years, UK for 50 years. We were down in the Cheltenham area for 10 years. But it's a great location to recruit those highly skilled engineers into the aerospace sector. A good workforce in the area, and we're well positioned. We have employees coming down from the Midlands with a decent level of commute, and also we have employees coming up from Bristol and Cheltenham and Gloucester, obviously, into Tewkesbury. We're growing because, in particular on the engine side, the sort of fuel efficiency that the engine manufacturers are looking for. Previously, there were 2 or 3 or 4 servo valves per engine. With new engines like the Ultrafan that Rolls-Royce have developed, they're going to need 13, 14 servo valves to get that precision control for the fuel and sort of the leaner burn that they need there. I guess the only other point worth making is that we're not just looking to move into a bigger factory. We want to make a step change in our operation. So we've managed to secure Innovate UK funding to allow us to build a sort of smart factory, so advanced manufacturing, higher levels of automation, and digital infrastructure. So to design that smart factory from the ground up. So exciting times in the next couple of years.
Mark, you've talked about the skill of the workforce. Gloucestershire is where the jet engine was born, of course. Advanced manufacturing and aerospace is a major part of Tewkesbury Borough. How important is the skilled workforce to you? Because bear in mind, we're going to probably have another 10, 12,000 people coming in wanting jobs. Are you going to be able to maintain those skills?
Well, we certainly hope to, and we're investing a lot of time and effort in graduate schemes. We've continued to take on apprentices, in the last number of years at a steady rate, because we know we have an aging demographic, and we have a particular we have fantastic culture within the company, and we're very keen to sort of grow our own people into that culture. But also we look at the region, look at the area, and know that there are other aerospace companies, and yeah, the opportunities are there to maintain that high skill level. We have, we've been, as we say, we've been here 50 years. We have a lot of people. We retain our highly skilled people very well within the business. We have very low turnover in employees. So we already have those skills, but we're looking to build on those skills in the area. So yes, it's very, very important to us. The company is all about the people, really.
Thanks very much, Mark. I'd like now to introduce Nikki Godding. I've known Nikki for some years now through editing papers and the Gloucester Regeneration Company. Nikki is editor-in-chief and co-publisher of Business and Innovation. And I have to say, this is a great magazine. They've just gone back to print after, I think, about a year out now, and they do a brilliant website. Nikki, this sounds very exciting, doesn't it, Tewkesbury? Because I don't know, having worked here in newspapers for a long time, I never really had that feel of the enormity of the businesses are there. I'm not saying that, people like Moog. Why? There are a lot of hidden gems here, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. In my very glamorous job, I spend a lot of, or did before the pandemic anyway, spent a lot of time driving around industrial estates. And it always amazed me, if you head off the motorway and you go onto the Tewkesbury industrial estates, how many amazing companies. Obviously, I know Moog very well. Although, Mark, you and I haven't spoken, so we better put that right at some stage. But more broadly, because Business Innovation is a regional magazine, I can look at Tewkesbury in the perspective of a wider region. And Tewkesbury really, I think, reminds me of Bicester, Bicester, on the edge of Oxford, is undergoing the most amazing transformation from about 20,000, population of 20,000 a couple of years ago, and they're aiming for 50,000. Now, Bicester is a fairly anonymous town. It used to be quite a pretty village, but it's a fairly anonymous town now. But the companies that are moving into Bicester are incredible. Listening to what Colin had to say, particularly about the routes going from Bicester, from Tewkesbury, all the way over to sort of the east of England, which is a phenomenal opportunity. It seems to me that Tewkesbury has got, it's a golden age for the county. If you look at where Tewkesbury sits within the larger area, listening to Mark talking about the smart factory, well, the innovation central for smart factory development is going on in Worcestershire at the moment. Worcestershire is leading on a 5G project to put to develop smart factories around the area. So Tewkesbury is perfectly placed for that. Looking at, say, there's an awful lot going on in the Oxford-Cambridge arch, and Oxford-Cambridge feels like a long way away, sitting where we sit, but not if you start opening up the A46 over to the other side of the country. Similarly, you're talking about fusion. Now, the thing about fusion is it actually hasn't been done yet. So the government is investing an awful lot of money into fusion when actually nobody's actually managed to turn fusion into energy yet, but the ambition is there. And I think, you know, if we can secure that project, for the money for the fusion project, that would be incredible. But I think we have to balance the reality of this, is that fusion hasn't yet been achieved, although the ambition is great and the government is driving that. Now, if you also look at Tewkesbury with relation to other forms of energy, you've got Coventry, which is, I think Tracy mentioned Coventry, because somebody mentioned Coventry anyway, because there's a lot of green energy going on in there. So you've got pull the skills and the knowledge in Coventry. The hydrogen, centre of the UK hydrogen is in Swindon. You've got fusion and all the other things going on in Bristol. You've got the Oxford-Cambridge arch with all the science and technology and life sciences going on over on that side. And what have you got in the middle? You've got Tewkesbury, which can drag all this amazing tech from all over the country to become a centre of excellence. I think it's incredible. You know, provide, and the one thing I haven't mentioned is Cyber Central, obviously, which is feeding into it. So there is a golden opportunity for Tewkesbury. And what really impresses me is I've been writing on business, as Ian knows, for about 20 years now. And I've never seen this much commitment, this much focus, this much this desire to work together for everybody in the region. I think I'm really excited about it. And reading a lot of what you wrote, Ian, I knew. So quite a bit of it I didn't know. There is opportunities there that we can sell to the world without a doubt. It'll give me I could write a magazine on Tewkesbury for every year for the next 10 years, I expect, if you give me the opportunity. So yeah, I'm very excited about the whole thing, the whole project.
Nikki, that's great, and fantastic to keep up the quality of your website and magazine. It's very important. I'd just like to bring in Mike Warner. I know Mike is on the call. Mike's a fellow board member of GSERS LEP, and obviously a big businessman in Gloucestershire. Mike,
good morning.
You heard what's been said today. What's your reaction?
I think it brings together a lot of things that the new A46 Trans-Midland corridor, trade corridor, will bring Tewkesbury tremendous exciting opportunities. I think Tewkesbury has always been a little bit of a sleeping giant in its commercial companies. I mean, it has a lot of technology companies. Its foundations go back to aerospace. It's got quite a lot of software companies now. It's got, and this coupled with the land available and its strategic position, the Trans-Midlands Trade Corridor, which connects Immingham right down to Tewkesbury, where there's 2.5 million jobs, and apparently 7% of the UK's GDP are based on that route, which we're at the one end of it. And that opens us right into the M5, Cheltenham Cyber, into Bristol. We're very, very well placed. And I think the plan's exciting. I think one of the cautions I've got is this is, 10, 20, 30 years away. what happens now? There's companies now with COVID that want to expand. They're looking for premises. They're looking for opportunities to expand. Is there going to be some land available, you know, in the next 4 or 5 years that, you know, to take up this? Because there's 30 years is fine. What happens now? And that's something that really worries me, actually. I think also Colin Chick, you know, with transport ideas, I think Gloucestershire now actually is having a joined up solutions to its transport. It's looking at joining up Gloucestershire, well, Cheltenham, Gloucester, Tewkesbury. And I think there's some great, exciting opportunities with a light rail system, which there's one being pioneered by Coventry with the cars. The car's been built in Coventry and the technology is coming out of an Oxford company. And that's all electric, no overhead cables. You only dig into the road 12 inches so you don't disturb all the utilities. Much lower cost to produce. And I think something like that could work in joining Gloucestershire. But yeah, let's keep at it. I think it's very exciting for the future.
Great, thanks, Mike. Mike Dawson, just coming back to you. We've talked about, Monk's talked about the skills of the workforce, and we all know that Tewkesbury Borough really is the centre of aerospace in Gloucestershire. Isn't there an idea we might develop some sort of advanced manufacturing education centre, perhaps with the university in Tewkesbury?
Thanks for that question, Ian. Can I just say my internet keeps dropping out and I just disappear. I have to keep coming back, so apologies for that. Absolutely, I think a USP for the Garden Town may well actually be an idea around some form of centre of engineering excellence with academia involved. That would be absolutely brilliant if we could work with engineering businesses and the university or other universities with excellent credentials to try and develop that. I think that would be a great aspiration. Can I just make a comment in on what Mike just said around land availability? Clearly, that's quite an interesting point. Within the Joint Core Strategy, we have something like 192 hectares of employment land allocated, and the council's own borough plan, which is in examination at the moment, has a great long list of probably about 30 sites, 86 hectares of employment land. Clearly, Mike's point's absolutely right, because it's all right us allocating land. It has to come forward for development. So hopefully, what we're looking to do is to once we get the borough plan landed, to work with landowners. Ian, I'm not quite sure whether you've all frozen. You're on mute, Ian.
Froze a bit then.
Okay. I've done, Ian.
Just like, before we have any other questions, I'd just like to sort of go round the panel for a sort of last word. Colin, you've heard what's been said this morning. Particularly, I know you're something of an expert on the whole transport situation. That's very exciting, isn't it? Linking up Gloucestershire properly.
I mean, it's got to be an absolutely fundamental principle. You know, if we're going to have a successful county going forward, we've got to get the communications right, and we cannot carry on relying on the car at the level we do at the moment. You know, at the moment we're putting £250 million into Junction 10, £300 billion into Junction 9. You know, and that's not sorted the junctions. That's not sorting the motorway out. You know, and as soon as you release that capacity at the junctions, so the motorway itself is then going to become overloaded next. And with that growth, what we've got to do is find a way of delivering that growth in the most sustainable way we possibly can, that actually encourages that growth to take place, but is completely sustainable and doesn't inhibit that growth. So, you know, we've got to look at every single way we can do that. We're building at the moment a multimodal model so that we can actually test when we go for development in the future, we can actually look at the moment, all the models are traditionally car-based. And we're actually building a multi-modal model, which will actually allow us to be able to test every development to see how, whether it's the right site in terms of sustainability, and how we can go forward in the future, creating that economic success and access to towns and houses in the most sustainable way, which will be really, really important. And that's going to be absolutely key. If we're going to keep a county that people want to be in, that people love because of its everything about it and its background, its nature and everything else, we need to look at where we will develop in the most effective and efficient way going forward. And therefore, things like that are going to be absolutely key. That things like the mass rapid transit system through, to create a backbone, the 26-mile long cycle route from Stroud up to Ashchurch and things like that are going to become really important in the longer term. And obviously, why would you use a train for work when it only runs once every 2 hours? Because effectively you miss the train, you're 2 hours late for work. So that, I'm talking about the Ashchurch situation here. So we've got that to an hour now from next year, but that's still not good enough. It's got to get down to half an hour before it starts to become feasible, before people start being tempted to use it rather than use their car. So it's about all of those, to bring all those things together, encouraging public transport use, make sure our developments take place in the right locations to encourage sustainable travel. So it's about attacking it from every single angle. So, because Ian, have I frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
Oh, you just froze very well. To just say, picking up what was being said earlier, is it Mark Lawton from Moog?
Yeah, Mark from Moog.
Moog. I think one thing we really, really must do in the county, and something I want to do, one of my aims before I retire, is to really drive forward on the apprenticeship front and our skill base, because businesses move to an area because it's the right location, and that right location is because it's the right price, right place in terms of connectivity. But the other thing that will take people there are skills, and one thing that people won't move to an area for if there's not the skills to support their business. And we've got a real problem heading our way with the demographic people falling off their perches in that advanced engineering side. And what we really desperately need to do is get as many of, we have trouble retaining young people. Let's retain those young people by actually creating a really, really great, what I like to do, a really great training system, and that's county-wide, that we join up, we share apprentices around different companies so they're multi-skilled. So that as industries change, they can move later in life or whenever it might be from one business to another. So they're always there. They can always support those businesses and that growth. And I think that's going to be really important for the future.
Yeah, great.
Ian, it's Mike.
Yeah.
Can I just have a very quick comment on that? Colin's absolutely right. In fact, Colin and I sing off the same hymn sheet. But effectively, what we need is a broad-based vision for Gloucestershire that actually starts to identify in terms of plans where we're going to put housing growth, where we're going to put employment growth, and link it to transport so that it's easy to connect people and places and allow people to travel really easily without necessarily using the car. And that needs really effective long-term planning. And that's what we need to do. And just a couple of comments, I think, in terms of Noel Green on the chat had commented about involving local small businesses. The best way, Noel, is get in touch with the Tewkesbury Growth Hub. That's in partnership with the LEP. And we'll look to put you in touch with our plan making processes. That would be great. Tracy Cadogan made some comments earlier on about an arts venue. I'd be really interested to look at, as part of our programs going forward, about the cultural offer in the garden town and our garden communities. And maybe we can sit and have a workshop on how we might look to do that. We've already got the Roses Theatre. We've got some fabulous festivals, but that's a conversation would be really good to open up. Thanks, Ian.
Great, that's right. Rupert, big day for buses. What have you got out of today, hearing about the exciting plans for Tewkesbury?
Well, as you say, there's a lot of really good stuff. What I've heard from Colin is music to my ears in terms of a real commitment to start properly putting investment into the bus network and bus guideways. The Cambridge and Luton examples are fantastic. And if we can have something like that between Cheltenham and Gloucester, it would be better than a train because it can take people right to the heart of the centres and be delivered far more quickly. And that's the great thing about the bus in this area. And I just hope that we can collectively deliver on these, because we absolutely need to. There are a lot of things that without decent transport that's environmentally friendly, we'll really struggle with. And I think it's going to be really exciting working with those on the call today to see how we can properly deliver these things, because Stagecoach is absolutely up for this challenge.
Rupert, that's great. Mark, last word from you. I was particularly keen on what Colin was saying about apprentices, something I've championed as an editor over the last 15, 16 years here. Young people, apprentices, they're going to be very important to you as you grow, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. It was nice to hear that from Colin. It's very, very important to us that we think about the long term. We've modeled it within our business. We have some highly skilled engineering activities that go on that we recognize it's going to be a real challenge to continue to provide that expertise. We're attacking that in two ways, really. First of all, is taking on the apprentices and graduates, so a steady scheme year on year doing that, but also from a technology point of view as well, recognizing there are areas, because we're growing, we can introduce that automation into the factory, and it's very supported by the workforce. So hand in hand, I think the apprentices are very excited about some of the technology stuff that we're doing as well. So I think you need to be doing exciting things and bringing in those highly skilled individuals to support that as you grow.
Perhaps even Mike, GET, of course, jointly owned by people like Renishaw in Gloucester, perhaps a base in Tewkesbury, to actually develop in the area those engineers of the future would be something worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, we do work with GET.
Yeah, fantastic. Last word, Nikki.
What I was going to say, what I've heard today has been really inspiring. I think Tewkesbury needs to galvanise everybody now, and it needs to present itself, make as much hype as it possibly can in these key stages when I'm assuming you're trying to influence those government funders and companies coming into the area. So I'd urge you, please use us, use the magazine, use our website, which gets tens of thousands of visitors every month. We will report on successes, we will report on challenges, we'll help you any way we can. I would like to see Tewkesbury in the national news much more than it ever has been. So please help us to help you. That's what I'd say.
Thanks, Nikki. And Mike, thanks for your help. Colin, Rupert and Mark, for your expertise. I think that really it would be great if, as part of your planning on a consistent level, as Nikki said, there's more communication with the public, because a lot of this stuff, before I started researching this, I did not know, I have to say. And I think I'm not alone. So it's fantastically exciting. Mike, you've obviously done a great job so far. This is obviously going to be written large on your headstone, but good luck, and thanks to everyone who's participated. We've had an absolutely fantastic audience today, and Libby's going to be sending around the recording later today. Any more questions immediately, we'll obviously take them, but thank you. Okay, I think that's about it, actually. I've got one here. Oh, Tracy, my mum and dad did apprenticeships, looking at craft apprenticeships. Obviously, that's something that Jonathan will be keen to look at. So many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for sharing. It's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.